Thank you, Yanir, and thank you for inviting me. I think I understand my mandate here is to look at one of the presentations and kind of try to explain, but I want to just lead with kind of because I heard all of them and kind of 7 points that I thought are relevant for all of them. Then I'm going to focus on the third one about Community Lookout Alliance. I'm going to try to do this all in 300 seconds. Um, so just I've identified 7 rules. Talk to your audience, figure out who your audience is, right? For the ones about healthcare, I know a lot about healthcare. I passed biology in ninth grade, barely, but I passed it. But I'm otherwise an educated guy. And I had to ask that question about respirators. So again, think about the audience you're talking to. Whenever we communicate, to the best extent possible, think simple truths in simple language. The most effective communicators across the political spectrum. I mean, in some cases, it's not true in some abstract sense, but in their mind, it's true. But the really morally the best ones, simple truths, simple language. And I struggle with that as well. Um, Define the solution and the problem on your terms. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Some of these presentations I think are very good, and I get a sense of the problem, but I'm not 100% sure. Define that. If you can't define the problem, you'll not define the solution. The pitfall there is what I call the saint of circumstance trap, which alludes to a song by a band from my hometown, and the lyric is, "Sure don't know what I'm going for, but I'm going to go for it for sure." Right? That's the saint of circumstance trap. You don't want to fall into that. I can send a link to that if anybody wants to hear it. So when I started writing for blogs, writing for opinion columns, my late father would read everything I wrote. Sometimes I thought he was the only one reading it, but he would read everything I wrote. And then he would email me and he would say, he was very supportive, and he would say, "Lincoln, I really like your column. I really liked this one line." And my father, I mean, obviously he's my father, but would always pick out the line of which I was most proud. And now he's not around anymore, but I often write with him in mind. What is the line that my dad would like the best? And I'm not saying that because of my father, but when you're making a presentation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, think of one turn of phrase that you want people to walk away with it, walk away. So in the third presentation, cross-sector community trust network. It's wordy, but I think that's an example of that. If people walk away with that, they get an idea, a good idea of what you're talking about. So kind of think about that as you're speaking, preparing, writing, etc. Anticipate the problems and the criticism. Think of what someone would say who is just kind of generically skeptical and cynical. So much of the literature, particularly in this kind of democratic crisis moment that we read, you read this very good analysis, and the solutions chapter, which the editor asked them to tag on, is just, the nice liberals win. That's not a serious solution. And related to that, the last point, don't ignore the politics, right? So I was struck by the national service point, and I put it in the chat that the way American federalism works is that in Oklahoma, you will be able to do this by volunteering at the Westboro Church and painting signs that saying God hates and then an anti-gay slur. That's how American politics work. We have to anticipate that, and we can't pretend that's not true. But I wanted to talk to the Community Lookout Alliance because I thought this was a fascinating idea that I liked, and that the presentation was good. But I was thinking, so I talked about that one kind of soundbite in there, but it wasn't here. The problem could have been sharpened. The kind of the problem that you're trying to solve, which is communities lack resilience, which is straightforward and in the beginning, and that's good. But I'm not exactly sure what that means. Does it mean that after the flood everything is damp for a while? Does it mean we're just walking around angry at each other? So that kind of thing I think could have been sharpened a little bit. In general, I thought it was otherwise pretty clear, but then to think through the politics, because you often only get one bite at the apple here with people. So, what struck me, and I put this also in the chat, is that I'm friendly with a number of local elected officials, people who are city council members, the board of supervisors, because I do a lot of work in San Francisco, local state elected officials.
30
And if you were to
seconds.
present that to the neighborhood supervisor or the neighborhood city council person, if they would be intrigued, but the criticism they're going to come up with right away is, this sounds like neighborhood watch. how is this not like Nextdoor, right? The app, which is a place where people write things like, there was an African American man in my neighborhood, we better send the cops, right? So kind of, and because that's not what this is. But how do you anticipate that, get ahead of that so that you don't have to waste your time on the Q&A, or you don't have some smart apple just kind of shooting it down because of some criticism that you were aware of, but that you didn't fully address.